Bible prophecy verified through the pages of history. The Bible identifies the papacy as the little horn, emerging from the fall of the Western Imperial Roman Empire. Bible prophecy declares that this little horn would exercise dominion for 1260 years. After this period of dominion, the little horn was to be restricted until the appointed time of its utter destruction. This brief study highlights the fulfillment of this prophecy according to recorded history and the word of the God who declares the end from the beginning. Prophecies in the book of Daniel reveal that 4 successive Gentile empires would emerge from the time of Babylon, commencing in the late 7th century BC. These are represented as a great image of a man composed of different metals in Daniel chapter 2, and as 4 great beasts rising from the sea in Daniel chapter 7. In this study we will concentrate on the image of the 4 beasts. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. The first was like a lion, and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth, and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. This represents the Babylonian Empire commencing 605 BC under Nebuchadnezzar II, who led the destruction of the temple at Jerusalem in 586 BC. The kingdom was later taken over by the Medes and Persians under Cyrus the Great, with the capture of the city of Babylon in 539 BC, and Nebuchadnezzar's grandson Belshazzar was slain. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. The bear represents the dual Medo-Persian Empire, one side being raised higher than the other, showing that the Persian side came to dominate the Medes. The 3 ribs represent 3 principal kingdoms conquered during the expansion of the empire: Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. The territory of the Babylonian Empire was absorbed and greatly extended. However, this was overtaken and extended even further by the next great empire, Greece, under the Macedonian Alexander. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. The leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads represents the Greek Empire. Alexander the Great defeated the Persians at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC, which effectively ended the Persian Empire under Darius III. After the untimely death of Alexander, the empire was divided between his 4 generals, represented in the 4 heads of the leopard: Seleucus in the east, Cassander in the west, Ptolemy in the south, and Lysimachus in the north. Greek culture spread throughout the empire before being overtaken by the Romans. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly. And it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. The 4th empire is Rome, which swallowed up all the territories of the previous 3 empires, extending dominion much further across Asia Minor, North Africa, and Europe. The Western Imperial Roman Empire became the greatest empire in the ancient world, with the Roman army conquering with the ferocity of a seemingly unstoppable and terrible beast, hence the description of the beast. However, after internal corruption and overextended territorial challenges, the empire was overrun in 476 AD, disintegrating before 10 Gothic kingdoms, symbolised in the 10 horns. As we will discover, out of these 10 horns would come the papal power, the subject of this study. History reveals that 10 Gothic kingdoms superseded the Western Roman Empire as the Franks, Burgundians, Alemanni, Suevi, Visigoths, Bavarians, Alans, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Lombards. I, that is Daniel, considered the horns, and behold, there come up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. History verifies that in the days of these 10 kings another power, symbolised as a little horn, with the eyes and mouth of a man, emerged, and in the process plucked up, that is, overcame, subdued, 3 of the 10 horns. This little horn represents the beginning of papal influence, as a political as well as an ecclesiastic power based in Rome. History records that the papacy instigated the defeat of 3 of the 10 kingdoms as foretold in prophecy, namely the Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Lombards. The papacy persuaded the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I to launch military campaigns, firstly to defeat the Vandals in North Africa in 534 AD, then the Ostrogoths in 553 AD. Later, papal influence over the Frankish kings Pepin the Short and Charlemagne resulted in the defeat of the Lombards between 754 and 774 AD. And he, that is the little horn, shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. So, Bible prophecy identifies the little horn as one who will speak great words against God, wear out God's holy people, the true church, think to change times and laws, be restricted to a period of dominion represented by a time, times, and the dividing of time. History records that the papacy and the Roman Catholic Church fulfill all of these identifying features. Firstly, we will examine the Bible definition of the terms time, times, and the dividing of time, based on Numbers 14 verse 34 and Ezekiel 4 verse 6, in which God appointed each day to represent a year in terms of prophecy, and the average of the solar and lunar years is 360 days, a prophetic time equals 360 years. So time equals 360, times is a time times 2, which equals 720, and the dividing of time is equal to the time divided by 2, which is 180. Adding these gives 360 plus 720 plus 180 equals 1260 years. Therefore, according to declared prophecy, the period of papal dominion would be 1260 years. Daniel 7 verse 25 declared that the little horn would speak great words against the Most High, that is God. From its emergence, the papacy has continued in its divine pretensions with the following blasphemous claims. The papacy claims to be possessor of the keys of heaven, but the Bible teaches that only Christ holds the keys to unlock the heavenly realm. The papacy claims to be the head of the universal church on earth, but again Christ alone is the head of the church. The Pope takes the title Pontifex Maximus, which means a chief bridge maker, a title originally held by pagan emperors. Essentially, it means a mediator between man and God, whereas the Bible teaches that there is one mediator between man and God, Jesus Christ. The Pope claims to be the Holy Father of the Church, but Jesus warned that we should call no man father in a spiritual sense. The papacy claims full supreme power over the whole Church, but there is only one supreme power and head, and that is Jesus Christ. The papacy claims to be the successor of Saint Peter, but Peter has no successor. There is no evidence that Peter was ever in Rome. The papacy claims rulership over heaven, earth, and Hades, as we see in the papal tiara. But again, only Christ rules over all. Papal infallibility was declared by the papacy in 1870, but only God is infallible. The Pope has the title, the Vicar, that is, in place of the Son of God. Jesus Christ has no vicar, he has no replacement or person in place of him. The most prominent official title of the Pope is the Latin Vicarius Filii Dei, which means Vicar of the Son of God. The numeric value of this title is 666, as we read in the book of Revelation. Revelation 13 verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Daniel 7 verse 25 declared that the little horn would think to change times and laws. The papacy has indeed changed times and laws on many occasions during the course of its history. The most prominent change in terms of time is in the Gregorian calendar, now used almost universally, which was promulgated under Pope Gregory XIII in 1582, replacing the Roman Julian calendar introduced by Julius Caesar in 45 BC. Alongside influencing the formation of national civil laws in European nations over more than 1,000 years during the medieval period, as well as its overseas dominions, the papacy also set up several versions of the Roman Catholic Code of Canon Law from the 12th century, with more recent changes emerging in 1917 and 1983. Many of the laws formulated during the height of papal power forced the nations in which they exerted total authority to adopt papal laws. Nations that refused were made subject to sanctions under papal interdiction. Daniel chapter 7 verse 25 also declared that the little horn would wear out, literally afflict, the saints, that is, the sanctified ones of the Most High. The papacy has a long history of persecuting those who refuse to come under papal authority, especially members of the true church who actively exposed the papacy as Antichrist. The following are just some examples. The papacy launched a campaign against the Waldensians, also known as the Vaudois of Piedmont, beginning in 1184, spreading from Italy to Switzerland, France, Spain, Bohemia, Austria and Poland, lasting over more than 500 years. Similarly, the Albigenses, also known as Cathars, of southern France suffered a 20-year campaign of eradication between 1209 and 1229 under the papacy. Protestant French Huguenots suffered abominable atrocities under papal-backed military attacks between 1562 and 1628. Most notable was the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, in which some 100,000 were slaughtered. Followers of Jan Hus, who was burnt at the stake in 1415, known as Hussites of Bohemia, suffered persecution over the next 20 years. Followers of John Wycliffe, known as Lollards, suffered torture and burning at the stake during the reign of Mary I, also known as Bloody Mary, in England between 1553 and 1558. Papal-backed religious wars against Irish Protestants and Dutch Protestants, accounting for hundreds of thousands of deaths, were conducted between 1568 and 1684. Papal authorities carried out Roman, Portuguese and Spanish inquisitions in which many thousands were systematically tortured and killed during a period of more than 600 years. In more modern times, the papacy actively supported the fascist General Franco during the Spanish Civil War between 1936 and 39, in which some 500,000 were killed. During World War II, the papacy supported both Nazism and Italian fascism through the signing of Concordat treaties with Hitler and Mussolini between 1933 and 1943. The papacy instigated and perpetrated genocide in Croatia during World War II between 1941 and 1945, in which more than 700,000 deaths were recorded. John Foxe's famous Book of Martyrs, first published in 1563, provides details of persecutions against Christians, commencing from the stoning of Stephen as recorded in Acts chapter 7 in the Bible. In the preface, he stated the following, quote, "No denomination except the papal hierarchy has adopted as an article of religious belief and a principle of practical observance the right to destroy heretics for opinion's sake. The decrees of councils and the bulls of popes, issued in conformity with those decrees, place this matter beyond a doubt. Persecution, therefore, and popery are inseparably connected, because claiming infallibility, what she has once done is right for her to do again, yea, must be done under similar circumstances, or the claims of infallibility given up. There is no escaping this conclusion." Unquote. Having clearly established the identification of the little horn of Daniel 7 as the papacy, it now remains to apply the prophetic period of 1260 years of absolute dominion. There are 4 key dates that mark the beginning of the rise of the papacy as the supposed head of the Church. The elevation of the papacy to universal status commenced in 533 AD, when the Eastern Roman Byzantine Emperor Justinian I wrote to the Bishop of Rome declaring him to be the chief bishop of all churches. In 538 AD, Justinian made a further decree confirming the supremacy of the Bishop of Rome over the whole church. In 606 AD, the Byzantine Emperor Phocas declared Pope Boniface III universal bishop of all Christendom. The Byzantine Emperor Phocas was overthrown and executed in 610 AD after a rebellion led by Heraclius. Adding 1260 years to each of the dates marking key phases in the rise of the papacy to temporal civil power results in key dates marking key phases in the termination of the papacy as an absolute civil power, namely 1793, 1798, 1866 and 1870. We now examine the historical record of each of these terminating dates. 1793 marked the French Revolution, the beginning of the Reign of Terror. Roman Catholicism was officially abolished as the state religion in France. The papacy effectively lost its eldest daughter, and the French King Louis XVI was executed. History reveals that in 1798, during the Revolutionary Wars, Napoleon's army invaded Italy. General Berthier of France marched into Rome and captured Pope Pius VI, demanding the Pope renounce his temporal power and declared Rome a republic. After the Pope refused to comply, he was forcibly dragged from Rome, later dying in captivity in Valence, France, a year later in 1799. The papacy never fully recovered from this event. Three key factors occurring in 1866 served as a catalyst for the termination of the papacy's temporal authority. Number 1. French troops withdrawal. As part of the September Convention of 1864, Emperor Napoleon III began pulling his protective French garrison out of the Papal States in 1866. This left Pope Pius IX vulnerable to the aggressive unification efforts of the Kingdom of Italy. Number 2. The Third Italian War of Independence. Favourable alliances during the 1866 Austro-Prussian War allowed Italy to annex Venetia. This expansion of the unified Italian kingdom further isolated the remaining papal territories. And number 3, nationalist uprisings. The French departure emboldened figures like Giuseppe Garibaldi to attempt military campaigns to capture Rome itself. While French forces briefly returned in 1867, the momentum generated in 1866 proved irreversible. The year 1870 marked the definitive turning point in modern papal history. During this year, the papacy lost its physical sovereignty and territorial control, shifting focus entirely to ecclesiastical authority. French troops that had been stationed in Rome to protect Pope Pius IX were recalled in July 1870 to fight in the Franco-Prussian War, in which France suffered decisive defeat at the Battle of Sedan on the 2nd of September. This paved the way for Rome to become the capital of a united Italy under the monarchy of Victor Emmanuel II. Until 1870, Pius IX was not only Pope, but also the sovereign ruler of the Papal States. His rule was considered secular and as such was accorded the title King. On September 20th, 1870, Italian troops captured Rome from the Papal authority and proclaimed it the capital of the United Kingdom of Italy. The reigning Pope thus lost his temporal powers and effectively became the prisoner of the Vatican. Interestingly, during the same year, the Roman Catholic Church issued the decree of papal infallibility. The power of the papacy in terms of its military and political status was finished, and it then shifted to asserting its ecclesiastical authority as its sole remaining power. Concerning God's judgment on the little horn of the papacy, we read in Daniel 7, verse 26, "But the judgment shall sit, that is, be set, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and to destroy it unto the end." The termination of the temporal power of the papacy, confirmed in history after 1260 years, commenced the eventual consumption and ultimate total destruction of the papal system. This is declared to take place at the second coming of Jesus Christ, marking the end of the gospel age. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 8. "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming."